Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to be installing and reviewing Overwatch Precision's TAC trigger along with their OEM Minus connector into my Gen 4 Glock G34. Before I get too deep into the video, I do just want to take a moment to thank everybody who has subscribed so far, commented, given likes to the videos. That's cool. You know, I make these things to give my experiences that I've had with different guns and gear, and give a little bit of insight into it, and hopefully help somebody out who's trying to make a decision on certain pieces of equipment themselves. And also, this will be the first video where I don't have to make them in several parts, because I have finally verified my account, which I couldn't figure out how to do it before, but they finally sent me a link, and from here on out they should all just be one full video. So as you can see, the gun is empty, no magazine in the mag well, along with no round in the chamber. There's no ammunition anywhere around me. So my Gen 4 G34 comes with the dot connector. Trigger's not bad in comparison to some of the other Glocks out there. Breaks at about 4 pounds. Can't say that I feel a huge difference in pull, at least, or feel, compared to other Glocks that I have. It's about 4 pounds. About 4 pounds. One more time. Again at 4 pounds. So the Overwatch Precision TAC trigger, it's advertised that it improves trigger control along with shortened pre-travel, with all safeties remaining fully functional. And then the OEM connector should have a reduced trigger weight, along with a tactile reset and smooth trigger press. So we'll test out the difference between them. One of the things that I did additionally was I took a lead pencil here. So super scientific way of doing this, but I think it visually captures it a little better. I made a mark at the very tip of the trigger where it sits when the gun is ready to fire, when it hits the wall, and then how far it travels once you pull it completely. So I'm going to go ahead and install the trigger, install the connector. Plenty of videos out there on how to do this, plus it's not super difficult anyway. And we will compare the reduced pull along with the travel, and I will try to describe the feel as much as I can. Anybody that knows Glocks knows that, I mean, it's a striker fired, it's a Glock trigger. You got take up. I won't say it's like a carrot, not like a glass rod. It's not bad. I don't mind Glock triggers at all. So let me go ahead and get this installed, and I'll come back. While I have it apart, I figured that I will show you guys a quick side-by-side of the OEM assembly next to the Overwatch TAC. You see here, finishes is a little bit more shiny on the OEM. It's kind of almost like a matte finish on here. I don't know if that makes any difference whatsoever on the Overwatch. Nothing super special. More so with the shape of the trigger shoe. You get more of a flat face on here. And then when it comes to the connectors, if you didn't know already, excuse me, a way to tell which kind of connector you have is simply on the back of the tang right here. You see there's a dot, so this is the dot connector. And on the minus connector, you can see the little minus. So Overwatch Precision Minus. All right, so I've got the trigger and the connector installed into my G34. One thing to point off right off the bat, obviously this being one of the flat face triggers compared to the standard rounded trigger, that's greatly different. And I will say that this is the first flat face trigger that I have ever personally owned. You know, unfairly, I've never been a very big fan of them. Even on my ARs, I choose to go with the rounded trigger. Even though my ALG triggers in my AKs and in my Galil Ace, it's the lightning bow, where it has somewhat flat, somewhat rounded, but that's the only version they come in. But I gotta say, I think I like it. Your trigger finger feels very it's in the same spot. There's no, it's kind of hard to describe, but it just feels very consistent. So that is surprising, and I like it. So also, you're going to notice that the hash marks that I put on there before, at the beginning of the video, where this is where the tip of the trigger was, when it was, the striker was cocked, this is where it met the wall, and then this is the travel once you pulled it. So as you see, it is much more pulled into the gun. It is almost to where the wall is at the cocked position. The wall now is right there, and over travels back here. So I think you'll notice that as you see, it's about 2/3 of the way towards the previous wall. And now when you pull it to the new wall, it comes in at about, I wouldn't say the halfway mark. So there's definitely less travel to the wall. But I would say that the over travel is probably about the same. One thing that I was really surprised about when it comes to this is when it comes to the pull weight. So before, if you remember, the pull weight was a little over 4 pounds, or right at about 4 pounds. With this Overwatch TAC and Minus connector, 4.5 pounds. That one pulled at about 4. And almost 4.5. So it is actually slightly heavier than the OEM trigger and OEM dot connector. But I will say that that may be very hard to perceive in the finger. But I want to say that the feel of the flat face, along with the trigger now being further back, gives you a different leverage point on it, and you don't even notice it. So it's heavier, but it doesn't really feel heavier. And one thing that I did notice is that when I was taking shots with this earlier, doing some dry fire, definitely seems to be less disruption from pulling the trigger. You know, I'm not a pro shooter. I'm not an expert by any means. But I will say that I do always notice, and I've been working on it through dry fire, that when I do pull the trigger, I get a little bit of wiggle. Obviously, that's exaggerating it. But with this trigger here, it's a lot less. So in my mind, this is a win. It's a good upgrade, I feel. Obviously, shooting it's really going to be the thing that settles that or not. But so far, just doing dry fire, and for the feel of it, I really like it. I know that typically I want to say that the OEM connector goes for about $30 if I remember correctly, and then the TAC trigger goes for about, I think it's $150. I might be wrong about that, but I did get these used on AR15.com's equipment exchange. The guy did say that he only had about 50 rounds through them, and I ended up getting both of these for $100 shipped. So definitely I'm not going to complain about that. And then just one little last thing, you know, I've never been a fan of really changing out too much stuff on my serious use guns. I like to keep things as OEM internal wise as possible, though in some of my other videos you'll know that I installed the Overwatch connector into my G19 Gen 5, and along with my G19 build, it's a Gen 3. And I think I may be incorrect about this, but I believe that people experience more problems with aftermarket connectors than they do with whole triggers. When I first got into Glocks and then into Glocksmithing, I was thinking it was the opposite, that you really didn't want to mess with the trigger and the trigger bar, that could lead to more reliability problems. But you know, this gun here, even though not to say that I wouldn't grab it in a defensive scenario, it is kept in my house. I don't really bring it out with me as far as concealed carry or car carry, but we will see how this ends up holding up. I'm not going to say that if it wasn't near me, I wouldn't grab it. So I'm gonna, next time when I finally get to the range again, I will test it out and I'll give a little bit further evaluation. But so far, again, dry firing, TAC trigger, OEM connector, it's a win to me. So thanks again, guys, for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you would, share the video. Just again, I make these videos to help out anybody who may be looking at doing different upgrades and are a little bit unsure of it. So just kind of giving my insight into it. So thank you very much.